honorable sisters, brothers, and friends. I have to say that because I was forced by that criminally insane, immoral J. Edgar Hoover, I survived. But I put life and health before what I achieved and its great honors and tremendous value. So, I was born in upstate New York. I didn't think I had an accent. We all spoke the same. I thought those in New York had that New York accent, and I didn't realize I have a New York accent. I realized it when I would tape my science and then play it back. I say, oh, gee, I sound like I'm from New York. And some of those tough guys from New York. Well, I grew up in a tough neighborhood, and I played baseball. And my idol was Ty Cobb. And Ty Cobb was the roughest, toughest baseball player around. And I was the leadoff batter. What they say is the holler guy. So I apparently developed this speaking voice as the spark plug to lead my team, which I did, and we won the championship. Well, from that I went into the service. And in war, even though I made 4 years high school and 3 A's in physics and math, I consider myself one of the best academic students in the world, anywhere. A's in physics and math, I did really good. But in war, it's completely trying to survive, and I sustained during wartime an injury. And that isn't what was bad. It was that when I prepared to go to a university, I said, well, I better review my work. It's been a few years. To my surprise, when it came, I was reviewing the work. When it came to the physics and math, it developed like I was speed reading. I said, well, maybe I still have that quality and expertise in physics and math. So I changed my major from phys ed, because I was playing baseball. I was a playing manager of a semi-pro team. In baseball, I know it exceptionally good from a scientific viewpoint, in fact. And I can play every position. So I was still the playing coach, the holler guy with authoritative voice. This is what we do. I says, but I used to listen to I. DuPont d'Amour's, I think it was on a Wednesday evening, of the greatest scientists. And I always listened to them. And it appeared as though maybe I was a natural in comprehending mathematical physics, the math and the physics, an A student. And I used the regular words. I arrived at where I could put forward in the physics and math what we would have in that coming week. Well, you know, other students would struggle to comprehend and stay with the instructor of what that day was. So I was sure of myself as far as comprehending mathematical physics. But it's been a while. But when I went through to like speed reading, and I said, well, gee, I have still a month before college classes begin. Well, what should I do? Well, everything was Enrico Fermi. Enrico Fermi is from Italy. And Joseph, now Doc, honorary title, Doc C. I'm Joseph Castellano. And they say here in the U.S. we're better than anyone else. Well, he's from Italy. I'm Italian descent, but I'm here in the U.S. I wonder if I can at least comprehend his great work. I figured it would take me a month if I can get it done, but it'd be a sharp way of being academically prepared at least and best as far as college studies. My goal? Well, I was there with the understanding of playing baseball, and I figured I played baseball, I get a name for myself and get into politics and see what I can do in politics. Abraham Lincoln, self-educated, and he achieved it. Maybe I can become the first Catholic president, especially Italian descent. And I formed a program of how I could do that, you know, if I obtained a public name for myself. So I studied Enrico Fermi's work, and I was surprised. I'm like speed reading through his work and comprehending it. In fact, in 2 weeks' time, I could reproduce his work, concise, even using graphic diagrams instead of just putting them in by words or mathematical equations. I thought that was really good comprehension, at least. And as I was doing that, I noticed certain things that were in the chain reaction of fission and fission energy. Which, of course, was the A-bomb. And I said, well, I have at least practically 2 more weeks now. I wonder if I could obtain something new and maybe as good. So in delving into his work, what I could do that might be futuristically valid, I came up with the fission-fusion chain reaction that occurs on the surface of the sun called solar flares. Now you understand, you can't deny that there are solar flares on the surface of the sun. How do they occur? And I went through, like I obtained the equipment, the experiments, and solution in mathematical physics of fission, fusion, hydrogen fusion energy, hydrogen fusion bomb, H-bomb. And I'm sure it's valid. What to do? Well, I obtained some work on the University of Rochester campus so I could obtain it as a little money, and it was engineering, really engineering construction, which paid good, but it was on the campus, and I could see who would walk into their advanced physics department of cyclotron building, and that's the way I did it, secretly. And I noticed that on a Saturday afternoon was the least students, and they were mainly the research scientists would sign into the cyclotron building. It's called the Atom Smasher, a cyclotron building. So I had written after World War II to work for the FBI for a specific reason. I had a friend, didn't have a degree, but he did tough work, inside work for him. Well, when you risk your life, they aren't so fussy about a degree and all that. Yeah, you can work for them. When they answered, they said, well, you have to be an attorney or at least 4 years of business math especially, and a couple of years experience even, in order to be able to them to hire you. Well, okay. It looked like it was rubber stamped at J. Edgar Hoover's name. Well, I wrote them. That's the standard reply. But now I called them and I said, look, I identified myself, and I said, I think I'm sure I have a valid, futuristic type of energy, and I think it should be presented in a secret meeting. And I obtained work on a U of R campus, and I noticed on a Saturday afternoon there's the least students there, and there's just the research scientists walk in and out of the cyclotron building, signing in and out. So I suggest we have a secret meeting there, and I'll present what I consider to be valid fission fusion energy. And he said, well, yeah, that's real interesting. Of course, he says, but we're not scientists here. I says, well, we have a security science meeting, and that's the way it was done. Now it came to where it was, of course, valid. And what would another country maybe get that? Well, first they had to get an A-bomb, and I was of the opinion maybe in 5 years. So secretly then I started at the top, absolutely at the top. Overnight I'm at the top. Well, I thought Hoover would say, well, this bright young man, we hire him as a tech on the peripheral with the great scientists, and this is what should have been done, of course, instead of just being even, well, all right, he wants to change his major from physical education because he plays baseball and baseball manager to physics, minor mathematics. That might raise some questions. He's just a regular guy. No. I get a position on the Super Manhattan Project I forcefully presented and insisted we had to do. The sooner the better. And as a science tech, and then I study to obtain the actual degree while I take down data and notes in the Super Manhattan Project. But Hoover figured, this man is doing what I should do. Where, when, how, why? I can use that. I keep him secret, and whatever he comes up with, fine, I use. That was wrong. Well, now they're having a party, and I'm either the honored guest or I understand there's going to be a powerful guest there. And guess who? And I get there, and I don't see any girls. And I had a co-host or somebody there, and I said, so where are the girls? And he looked at me and he said, well, Hoover doesn't have this kind of a party. You have a party with boys. What? He says, well, yeah, you have your choice of one of those two young fellas. What? I just stormed out. I just stormed out. Now, Hoover says, hey, this man thinks I'm immoral and wants me replaced. I don't know the power this queer Hoover has. Now, show him. Whatever he does, I control and I get. That's the way I'm doing it. So it developed that whatever I thought this country needed, I would say, well, I was fortunate in that it's called military science. Yeah, you fight a life and death struggle. It's dirty, tough, life and death struggle in the front lines. And you go up in the chain of command. But it's really military science, he says. Well, when he said science, that got my interest. And in military science, if you're an officer, which I'm being trained to be, and you make your decision. You stay by that decision, and you work with that decision, and you go forward with that decision, and you stay with that decision. And this colonel from West Point, I thought was right. That's the way to do it. And when they interviewed me to decide if I should be an officer or not, the man said, well, after about 30 minutes, he says, I've asked you several questions, and your answers, he says, and he says, I've been doing this about 3 years. He says, but you have the best grasp of what an officer should be. He says, I think you'll make a real good officer. He says, that's what I'm supposed to decide, and you will be the best officer and gentleman that I and we can make. And I says, sir, I thank you, but I'm already the best gentleman I can be. All you have to do is make me the best officer. He looked at me and laughed. And he says, you're the best I've ever interviewed in this program. Now, in my opinion, Hoover is philosophically on the East Coast in Europe. And on the West Coast, and I was out in the Southwest and talked to men from the Pacific Coast. That area is going to grow faster than any area. It's unbalanced that Hoover's on the East Coast and is an East Coast tyrant, immoral, and everything is Europe. So I don't think he has a grasp of global strategy. So it's my opinion, we needed to centralize our intelligence. Quantitatively, we have Hoover improved, and qualitatively, I think we can do it. But Hoover would find out anything I would think and do. That's the way it was done. And he said, hey, yeah, okay, after a year in losses, he was forced to say, okay, we're going to have a CIA, but I pick who the director is, and he's under my thumb. So the CIA started. You see, there was a personality clash developed in between this queer Hoover and yours truly. You got to get that Hoover out. But now you got Hoover, the power, and the director's under his thumb, and became, the CIA started out to be Hoover's, the fall guy for Hoover's FBI. Now I say all of this because on Sundays I have a review of the week. And they have it where it's my word against, I got to prove what I say. Well, I can prove what I say. You put this on a voice stress analyzer, which I worked on, and it'll prove I'm saying the truth. Plus, I'll take a polygraph lie detector test that anything I present is the truth. That polygraph test, I'll pay for it on any newspaper, magazine, TV editor's desk, but one stipulation, you must print the results. Isn't that fair enough? So in the review of the week, I have said that this country now is kaput. Why? Because of the King George. They said they were royalty and they should rule. They ruined the country. They got Slick Willie Wilson, Slick Willie Webster. Slick Willie Webster, 10 years, FBI, 10 years, CIA. That power continued the Hooveristic crimes of the inside power decides, and they falsified the reports so we could go to war against Iraq. It's been proven. The House of Commons there and so forth, House of Lords and Commons publicly, was on international TV, proved that they lied and falsified the reports for the U.S. Well, for the U.S., it was Slick Willie Webster and the King George, Queen Hoover tyranny, that they were going to invade Iraq. Well, there's big, multi-billion dollars military deal contracts. Wasn't that true? We lost men and women in Iraq, and all of the deaths. Why? On the false reports, because as they're going to go in there and bing, bang, boom, and actually was ducked Vietnam. The coward of Vietnam wanted him to be the leader and going against a ragtag army that the man in charge says, I can get what equipment I got and get a Boy Scout troop and we can beat them. That, not my words, that man in charge's words. I volunteered 6 times. I risked my life, maybe. I risked my life many times as a super patriot. What was good for this country, and survived accidents. JFK didn't plot. He didn't set himself up, obviously. Well, who did? Who was the power behind it? Well, it was obviously Homo Hoover, because JFK, I was in Bobby Kennedy's office demanding, not asking, demanding, by the Constitution, Bill of Rights, investigate Hoover experimenting on my brother and I, and experimented my brother to death. Absolute true fact. He did that on others. That woman hater, that Homo Hoover, even showed me that he did it with one woman. That's what I saw and survived. Absolute true facts. Why don't the public know? They still have this secret power that the U.S. doesn't have to know the truth. You let them run the country with their big multi-million-dollar contracts. You supply your sons and daughters to go over there to kill those Arabs, and the Zionists in Israel used to kill the Arabs, but now they got where they're getting money, and they've got the U.S. It's the Christian and Jews against those dirty Arabs who were our friends in World War II. And I was in World War II and talked to men that were in North Africa and said sometimes if it wasn't for those Arabs helping us, we would be killed or die in that desert. So we were there for our friends. Now they're the dirty Arabs. They're Christian and Jews against those Arabs. Well, you're taking their land. Forcefully, Israel was granted way more land than they should have obtained. That was the way the English did it. They falsified records against Iraq. They split the Arab world by giving Israel land from the Mediterranean to the Gulf of Aqaba, so that now no Arabs from North Africa could go through their land, that they had all one Arab area from North Africa through Middle East up into then going to Jordan, Palestine, there's Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Lebanon. All those countries were all one area. And they were just tribes that they say was their land. It's their land. No. The indigenous Arabs were there when the Israelis went from Egypt into their area. And it always was like that. Now they say those Arabs should go to the Sinai in Egypt. No, you go back to the Sinai in Egypt because that's their land. They're indigenous people there. It's really their land. If there's no Palestine, then there can't be an Israel because that's their land. You understand? But now they have where their power here, their clout, and the politics and money, where our sons and daughters, or those who are, especially from Mexico, to want to become citizens, well, you get into the army, you serve, and then you come out, you're a citizen. You risk your life. Yeah. The working people, the bottom 50% mainly. I think they said that in the war of Iraq there was not one son or daughter, and I don't think girls should be, definitely as far as Army, maybe back in Quartermaster Corps or something. Men and women are getting killed that are patriotic. Now it's the U.S. Why? Well, here in the U.S. at the top, they're making billions. The story about the plane that came in to pay our troops, they put it all on one truck. I guess that's the way they were doing it. The truck disappeared. Well, what happened to it? Now they're looking for this truck. Can you imagine a truck the size of billions of dollars and $100 bills that they can't find? So they had to fly in another plane with another to pay the troops. That's just one incident, and there's been stories about rackets there. And it's those at the top got richer, more got elected, and then they get more millions. So the top 1% has more money and is getting way more power all the time than the bottom 50% of the entire nation. 1% is essentially controlling the economy. They give billions to the bank. They bail out the banks who lost the money. They get a $10 million separation pay while the other guy gets fired and loses his home. With all of those billions, they could have paid off, not just saved, paid off. All those who were losing their homes, they would have paid off. And that would have solved that problem, and people keep working. No, they gave it to the banks. They still give it to the banks until Israel, the Zionists there, what they get by loans and the planes and tanks and guns that they built to take over the land there that they wanted to take over and have taken over. They even told the Pope he couldn't go to the site of Christ. The Pope had to argue and get backing, and they said, well, okay, all right, we'll let you come in there. See, they take something and then say, oh, well, okay, we're not bad. Well, yeah, okay, you can have a minimum. When that's Christ, if there's anybody's religious land, I think it's Christ. He proved he was the divine Son of God. They can have their area of their tribes that they had, their 12 tribes, but the rest is all indigenous Arabs, and Christ was born there and proved he was the Son of God there. So Christians should have the first right of that land. And they were getting along fine with the Arabs, and the Jews just had their area. Now they got control. Now it's Zionist. It's not Jews. Jews is a religion. Zionist is worse than Nazism. They practiced genocide. They took and dressed up as Arabs. When the man that was president said, well, okay, I think I'll have to sign a peace agreement, and there are two Palestinian states. There are two states, Israel and Palestine. What happened? An American they got to assassinate him the day before. Isn't that, you look it up, it's a true fact. When it was the night before that they were said, okay, now they've got to sign a treaty recognizing Palestine as a country, which is about 1/3 at most of what is really theirs. They took their land, they take their water, they still got control of their water, they treat them, they slow genocide all these years, true fact. So what did they do? They dressed up as Arabs and went into a synagogue and murdered women and children. The next day, a man says, look at that, look what those Arabs did. Peace, he says, we're at war. And they went and bombed and killed and been at war ever since. True fact. One of the men that was in on that, he said, I just couldn't kill our women and children. He says, this is wrong. And when he said that, He was afraid they were going to kill him accidentally, like I survived accidentally. He says, I got to get out of Israel. So he escaped, and then he was in Canada, and then he came to the U.S., and I saw him on TV twice, at least twice. He says, this is the truth. He says, I live every day in danger because they have tried to kill me because once you get out of that, what do they call them, Assad or something? Once I get out of that group, nobody can get out of there or they'll kill them because they know what they've done. He says, we dressed up as Arabs and killed Jewish women and children, so the next day he can say, they're Arabs, we are at war, and they've been doing that ever since, and our country knows it. I saw it on TV. It was on TV twice. Our country don't know it? Of course. It's big-time money deals between those bankers on Wall Street that they bailed out that are in charge of our money, some of them. Some are actually in charge of our money. The Federal Reserve is not a federal bureau, is not a federal a department. It's private. They print the money and give it to this Federal Reserve, which is a private, and then they get the CEO was the president of who they gave the most money to, I think, the first bailout, and now the second bailout was to a CEO of the second bailout bank, and he said, I don't see why anybody's complaining. They got 65 billion. I only got 330 billion. I'm saving you 30 billion. You see, they can say about me anything they want. Like I say, they've tried to kill me. They tell me my time is limited because of my injuries and age. That's what they throw at me. Well, I've decided, like Galileo said, their reaction is equal and opposite reaction. So they come at me 24/7 since 1947. I consider myself a martyr. Definitely surviving Hooverism. I did the Xerox. I used to work for East Dakota Experimental Development Lab. XEROX, X-infinite variable mathematical physics. Absolutely true fact. Put this on voice stress analyzer. See that criminally insane Homo Hoover is who I say the gosh darn fellow was and committed those crimes, especially murdering my brother experimentally and others, using Nazi doctors even here, and they're definitely their data. And was the power behind JFK being set up and killed from his buddy who lived around the corner from him and would stay there overnight, and then he took over as president. True fact. For Bobby Kennedy, I was the man who stood up in his brother-in-law Steve Smith's brain trust session. You see, I thought I could be the first Catholic president, especially Italian descent, so I started a renaissance in the discipline of political science called dirty politics by most for obvious reasons. And I said, we have established, and it was obvious who, we have established now the Lincoln-Douglas type of debates at the presidential level. And because that's the way I figured the only way I could do it is that I present myself in a one-on-one debate and say, this is me, I will do the best for this country. You vote for me, I think it'll be the best vote because I will do the best for you. If you vote for somebody else, I wish you luck. Now there's television, he's presentable. We have to bring back the Lincoln-Douglas Lincoln-Douglas debates at the presidential level, and that will help him win. And that's the way it was done. You understand what I've really accomplished there for who I really am, and that they don't want the true facts to be known. The U.S. public has got to be stupefied under a black cloud of King George, Queen Hoover hypocrisy, not democracy, hypocrisy, especially from the viewpoint of theology. Now, there's almost 35 minutes, but it's true facts. And as far as the week, yeah, I have presented the true facts, and I demand, I demand my constitutional rights and reasonable compensation. This is little old preacher Doc saying, of course, I'm telling the truth, and the true facts should be known to the American. They say the court of last resort is the people, the American public. And we get better candidates who will do for the people, not that they have to sacrifice their sons and daughters and lose their homes while those at the top get more money and more power. So I'm risking my life still again, but these are the true facts, and I say thank you.